Welcome to Red Shirts Remastered, where we're here to bring you a special review covering Masters of the Universe Revolution, the brand new sensation on Netflix. Or at least for me, because holy crap, what a 5 episode adventure that was.
I saw a post from Kevin Smith saying thank you for everybody watching it and putting it into the Netflix top 10. So
Yeah.
it's not just you. Don't worry. It's
Yeah.
not just you.
He liked one of my tweets for shouting it out,
Oh,
so that was
sweet.
cool.
That's awesome. That's
But
always feels good. Um, you
yeah,
know.
like one of 3 people to like it, so hey, that's something.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember for Revelations, I got Jason Mewes to like a bunch and he always interacts and likes stuff, so he's really good about that.
He's a very nice guy.
Yeah, so
But yeah,
but yeah,
we're here to talk some
Revolution.
Revolution. Let's I think we'll dig into spoiler stuff later, but like let's just begin here. Non spoilers, overall thoughts on it.
Yeah,
How'd you feel about it?
I really enjoyed it. I'm gonna preface everything by saying I really liked Revelations
Agreed.
better than Revolution. Part of that is I don't think we got enough Revolution. Now, not to say, and this isn't really spoilery, it does set it up for another part, not necessarily another
Or at least
part, another
season.
chapter rather than
Sure.
another part. Like you know
Sure.
how with
Think of
Revelations we had part one and part two.
right.
This one we're definitely only getting part one, and that's what kind of made it a little
Think of
disappointing. They were able to cram everything. I will say this should quiet all those critics from Revelation, of all those people who said not enough He-Man and this is more a show about so and so rather than so and so rather than so and so rather than so and so,
uh,
and
I
you
yeah,
know,
I haven't really seen any negativity on it.
yeah,
On IMDb here, it's rated higher than the original Masters of the Universe, so that's something.
I
So that's cool.
I think part of that is, and this is not really spoilery again, is that we did get more present day He-Man rather than flashback He-Man, which is what the big criticism of Revelations was that we didn't get enough He-Man in the present day. Well, and I'm not going to get into my criticism of those people criticizing Revelations because I
Sure.
have nothing but praise for Revelations. 10 out of 10 for the whole thing. It's just the character anyway. But that's part of the reason there wasn't as much character development in this as compared to Revelations. I guess again, not having as much time. Some of the character development because of that though, less episodes kind of felt a bit rushed. So I wish we had more time. But I don't have any complaints about it. It's just a suggestion more so than anything of,
Sure.
hey, it would have been cool if. And we've talked about, you and I talked about while I was watching the whole comic stuff as well, that the comic tie-in stuff. So that could fill a lot of those holes that that I feel like are missing in the show itself.
Right. Just to go off of what you're saying about the comic tie-ins, Dark Horse did a 4 issue miniseries for uh prequel series to Revelation that covered like some characters from like origins or just stuff behind the show or prequel before the show. And so they're doing that for Revolution. So it may help tie in bits and pieces in between Revelation and Revolution. So we'll see. Will be interesting to see. But yeah, no, for me, I thought Revolution was really freaking good. I was there, just unable to go to sleep, trying to watch it, and so it was really good. And I think on the flip side of though, with it not having as many episodes, you didn't have as many sort of like lull moments in the show as Revelation did. And so that's part of it too. Every episode had something huge to contribute. And I think it was a great ride overall. And yes, you got a lot of He-Man in it. You got you got a lot of Skeletor in it too.
Mm-hmm.
Can't wait to get more into that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, they did lots of cool things in it that I really enjoyed. And even when looking back on some of the He-Man stuff or Masters of the Universe sort of stuff, I'm not really into as much. It was really cool to see how much they honor. It seems like about every avenue of Masters of the Universe that's come so far, because this is Revelation was meant to be a sequel from the original series,
Yes.
and this is a sequel from that. However, this show takes elements from the 2002 series as well as the 80s movie, and we'll get into what those are in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's all I have for non-spoiler stuff. If you, like I said, I think even if you made it through Revelation and you wish you'd something for better, like because you didn't like some of the character choices, I think you'd be more happy with this though.
Agreed. That's the thing that I think I the point I was making of I think that this quieted a lot of the critics because a lot of the character choices that they made in Revelation they veered back to more of classic character roles
Yeah,
in Revolution. Now those characters that were in certain roles in the original, veered to different roles by the time we hit Revolution, but
right.
they made it more of a classic style He-Man cartoon. I feel like in
Yes,
Revolution, typical Skeletor's the bad guy. Let's fight Skeletor. Here comes all his friends.
right.
And yeah, so definitely a like you said, a great ride. And the only criticism I had is I wanted more.
I mean, I think that
That's
goes
the
to
only
show, though.
criticism
At
I
the
had.
same time, though, if something's so well done,
Yeah,
like this is just if you watch it all together, it's just like a little longer than your average movie, maybe, right? And
yeah,
so,
yeah.
very
It's
easy
2.5
rewatch. I'd
hours
definitely
long,
rewatch
five
it.
episodes. It was easy to just sit there and binge. It's like you said, like I was watching a movie.
Yeah, really does feel like that.
I think that's kind of Kevin Smith's expertise coming in there of storytelling
Yeah,
and how he can take a franchise that the great thing too is he's a fan of, and
right.
so uh, the 80s movie, while a cult classic, is a little weird to say the least. And so this really feels like a good like in like replacement of a continuation of the cartoon into a more movie like structure.
Hmm.
Um, because like you said, we have it on Netflix. We got it all at once. We could binge it, and obviously then you watch Revelations and Revolution. It's like you're watching a trilogy. You know,
Something like that, almost.
so that's definitely is Kevin Smith's movie and storytelling expertise there. Uh, does a fantastic job. The cast is amazing, and this is voice acting we're talking about. Still an amazing cast. There was a it's not a spoiler. There's a switch. Sarah Michelle Gellar does not return to play Tila, and we don't know why. I'm sure we could speculate. I'm sure we could look it up on the internet and see others speculating, but we're not going to. We're just going to say that Melissa Benoist who played Supergirl in Supergirl series on the CW, did a fantastic job as well, replacing her. So I think Tila did get a lot of hate in Revelations, and unfairly and unjustly, in my opinion. But I think that she's part of the whole redemption for those hardcore fans who didn't like what they did with characters. She is, spoiler if you haven't seen Revelations. She is sorceress now, so and
Yes.
I will say that sorceress definitely felt very classical He-Man for sure in this. And not just like Andra's Man at Arms felt very classical Man at Arms to an extent. We'll get into that when we get into spoilers. Um, but it just again, like I said, Revolution had that more classical feel over Revelations. I just wish we had gotten more. Revelations was more character development. This was more punch him in the face.
It's definitely a more classic He-Man story, and so definitely a lot of moving pieces. Well said. I don't have much more to say on the non-spoilery side.
Yeah, I know you're chomping at the bit to start getting into the spoilers. I know you are.
Yes, yes.
So why don't we let you start it with
Where do we
why don't you give
begin?
us a breakdown, spoilery breakdown of how it goes.
How it goes. I mean, I guess just the most brief synopsis that I
Mm-hmm.
can come up with off the
Exactly.
top of my head is we see there's like all this whole like tech faction, the motherboard stuff that we saw set up a Revelation that all sort of like comes back. We see this tech version of Skeletor,
Skeletech.
Skeletech. I didn't realize he was ever called that until recently. Funny enough. But anyway, yeah, we see that Skeletor. We see the kingdom sort of people all in these different positions now. You mentioned earlier about that one person from Revelation. She's the new man at
Andra's
arms.
Man at Arms, Tila's
Yes,
Sorceress.
yes,
And then everybody else is kind of back to who they were. Um,
mm,
the king knows that He-Man is Adam now and all this stuff, and
but yeah, and
but yeah.
so yeah. The big thing with episode one is it's revealed that the king is sick,
Mm-hmm.
and he dies by the end of it,
Yes.
which then means He-Man now was left with this whole sort of dilemma throughout the rest of the show, between being the master of the universe and also king, and and often debating, can he possibly be both of those at the same time?
Well,
Is it
because
possible for him to be both?
yeah, and his
And
father
so,
always said you can't be both. Like you can't
right,
be a king and wear the crown and be the champion and hold the sword at the
right,
same time.
yeah. So, very interesting. Um, Before we move on further, though, what did you think about that whole idea of like the king sort of just dying? Because when it happened, it felt kind of sudden to me, kind of out of nowhere. But then, there's I don't remember if they talked about it beforehand, afterwards, but I had the idea of what probably happened. Um, Theory of what happened is probably like tech bots got into his blood and killed him somewhere. When that would have happened, I don't know.
Oh, maybe that's something we'll learn from a comic or something. But
Hmm.
yeah, again, this is the case of not enough time and more story than you gotta cram into less episodes. And
Sure.
sure, I could buy the whole. I mean, because it's been a setup. It was again. It's been planned this whole time, and it's been in the works for a while, so that's possible. But they did kind of just throw that on us. Oh, his organs have been failing. Oh, why didn't you tell us? Oh, didn't want to worry you.
Right.
Oh, boom, dead.
Right.
Okay.
There's definitely a time jump between this
Yeah,
revelation and revelation. How long? Don't
we
know.
don't know. Well, because they don't really.
Um,
We will. I will say they don't really. They didn't really show. Skeletor was just with the technology people. At
right.
the end of Revelations, they didn't show Skeletor there. They just showed them. And in the beginning of Revolution, boom, he's all technological.
Yeah,
So,
like the begin scene of Revelation was him being taken over by the motherboard.
yeah,
And so
that's right.
we
That's
don't
right.
know.
Yeah, but And they call him Skeletech now. Well, they got called Skeletech, and he's like, "Ooh, I like that." That
Right.
was good. That whole so yeah. So the king dies, and He Man's wrestling over whether he should be king or not, and all of a sudden this mystery man appears and
Yes.
says, "Well, then don't become king at all. Don't take the crown." And boom, it's revealed that it is someone named Keldor, son
Yes.
of the his grandfather. And he's like,
Right.
"I am Keldor's son of," I forget his grandfather's name, Radnor or something like that. And
Yeah.
so he's, boom, episode ends. You're like, "Oh my god,
Right.
there's this blue guy voiced by William Shatner."
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's something very interesting because they were very hush hush about who he voiced. And so it was
We thought he
very
was going to be
interesting.
Hordak.
Sorry, it was gonna be Hordak, and then a month ago they announced, hey, it's
Keith David is Hordak.
Keith David, yes, the legendary Keith David.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Of Halo
but
legend.
but yeah, no, but yeah, just to speed up the synopsis though, we have so much happens though, because it's then revealed that, Hordak is, coming to invade. He comes, there's all these ships that come.
Yep.
Keldor becomes king, but then at the end of the second episode, it's revealed that it was actually disguise that Skeletor had on.
Yeah, well, yeah, we find out that Keldor is Skeletor, and that Skeletech who was fighting everybody in the town was actually Motherboard.
Yes,
So,
yes. And
um,
so
and
uh,
then we
that was
have
very
this whole
interesting.
side story then of Attila being sorceress trying to go rebuild heaven.
Right, get all these magic staffs.
Yes.
Get all the three
Well,
different
but
kinds of
she not even
magics.
that. She doesn't know it's magic staffs. Right now she's just feeling guilty that there's no heaven for the king to
Right.
go to. And so she, yes, has to go on this quest to get all the magic. She learns from her mother, whose spirit is still wandering the earth or wandering
Yes.
Eternia, that to get Preternia back, she has to combine all the magics. So she goes on this quest and then goes and meets up with Granomir, who is a
Yes.
dragon,
Yes.
and um, then Lynn's there as well, evil-lyn, and evil-lyn, whatever you want to call her, who is Lena Headey, who to me is the star of the show still. Still the star of the show for sure. Just the way she does the voice acting of the character is just fantastic compared to any like I don't know why, just her voice fits evil-lyn so well. But anyway, and so and so now, uh, yeah, um, we go back to He-Man, and we find out that He-Man wants Man of War, who is the old man at arms, who is Duncan,
Yes.
um, to get Duncan to take the sword, um, to add technology to it essentially so that it can fight
Right.
technology, because all these
Yes.
people have been infested by nanotechnology, because when Motherboard attacked, she had all these
Yes. Yes. Yes.
nanobots that took people over.
Right.
They were building
Yes.
an army and
That's what I was
everything.
referring to about the nanobots, and
Yes.
we see have this moment of He-Man healing this child that was being taken over, and so he's like, "Well, I need a better
Mm-hmm.
way to be able to heal everyone at once." So that's
Yes.
where you get this whole plot line going on through the rest of the show of, well, the sword needs to be taken to someone, and so we can help everyone else. with it.
Yeah, and it's taken to uh, a um, a former royal blacksmith, I guess, locksmith, blacksmith, um, who is voiced by someone named Ted Biaselli, who is really no one major. He's not done much. It's kind of weird. He's just like he's not really a big actor or anything. He's more a writer, it looks
He
like.
he
So
did a good job though,
he did a great
and
job
he
with the
did a
voice
really
of
good
Bilbo.
job. And as I was about to say, that's the thing. It's Gwildor, and that's what I was saying earlier. How it pays homage to all Masters of the Universe that came before. This is the big thing that they made Gwildor canon now, a canon character to the main Masters of the Universe. Someone that
Because
was
this is one
previously
from
only ever in.
2000s, I'm guessing.
No, from the movie,
Oh, you're right. I
from the
remember him now.
'87 movie.
You're right. Oh my gosh. Oh my.
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy.
So there you go,
So,
deep cut from the movie there.
yes.
So
So anyway, they add technology um and this whole time Skeletor is king. You know,
Skeletor. Oh
Skeletor
my
gets
gosh.
made king,
We have, and right after that, at the beginning of the next episode, we have one of the best scenes in the entire show.
Tell him what it is.
This we sort of have this whole a revelation of sorts. Uh Keldor is Skeletor, or Skeletor is Keldor. And this sort of program that he's has sort of like starts flickering, realizing, hey, I was Keldor. And we have this awesome sequence where he's there. It's in the modified Snake Mountain, I believe, right? He's
Mm-hmm.
there, and there's like all these like sort of like icy sort of stuff around him, something like that, right?
Yeah, like
And
mirrors essentially.
right,
Yeah.
all these mirrors around essentially is what it's looking like, and we have this fantastic scene. This is one of my favorite moments in the show where you have essentially Mark Hamill, Skeletor, and then William Shatner's Keldor here going back and forth, right? Because Skeletor is here kind of having this crisis of like unsure what to do, and then Keldor is here being like trying to control him, tell him, "Hey, this is what you need to do."
It reminded
His
me
past self trying to come back to him, and it
yeah, it
was such an
reminded me
amazing
very
moment.
much of Willem Dafoe in Spider-Man and the
It was
Green
a lot like
Goblin.
that.
Yeah. Definitely reminded me of that. But uh I think that's where it's crazy to give Skeletor that kind of backstory now where because as you learned, Keldor was mentioned like once in a comic.
He was very briefly mentioned in the 1980s comic.
Yeah.
However, what's very interesting, the other point to this paying homage to other Masters of the Universe is this whole idea that Keldor is Skeletor is all the way back for is goes back to the early 2000s Masters of the Universe show.
Mm-hmm.
And so here we have all these old Masters of the Universe stuff sort of come together in the main universe that people really liked.
Yes. Yeah, and what's it's really really interesting that they are doing this kind of backstory and giving Skeletech, and He-Man this connection because now they're related. And now
Yeah.
it makes their fight even more interesting. But
Yes.
that's not the first thing. Well, so once Skeletor finds out who he is, he also changes his view onto Hordak because he wants to be Hordak's second in command, right hand man, and Hordak's picking Motherboard, or he thinks he's picking Motherboard. Really, he's picking nobody. Uh, and so uh, Skeletor's pissed off that Hordak, erased his memory and made him forget that he was Keldor and turn him into Skeletor and wants to take the Horde for himself as well. So after they execute their plan of distracting Adam, who doesn't have the sword, or He-Man, sorry, who doesn't have the sword, and then they're able to take over. And Sorceress is on her quest to go try and get all these staffs and who, by the way, Tila Sorceress has turned into a snake kind of looking woman because
Hmm.
she's been given the power
Harnessing
of
one of the
Ka.
other.
Um,
Yes.
and so she's on her quest, and Motherboard is able to take over Grayskull, and basically opens up it for Hordak to come and invade Eternia.
Right. And Hordak comes to invade, and it seems like for a while those ships are kind of just there, right? But
Mm-hmm.
there's already all sorts of other stuff that sort of just happened. Like we were talking about the battle in the town and other sort of battles other or elsewhere. But yeah, yeah. Trying to remember exactly what is next from there. I guess. I mean, Hordak comes in. Do we is the big thing with Hordak next?
Yeah, the big thing with Hordak is next.
Because we have uh this is what I was kind of sort of very surprised by is we got seemed like at least half the like throughout this entire episode about um well, of course there's cuts in between while it goes to do other stuff. There's this giant fight in between Hordak and Skeletor,
Yeah,
where, which was freaking epic. I was here like,
so
holy crap.
epic.
I was not expecting this because I was expecting it to be He-Man versus Hordak by the end, but
Yeah,
now
absolutely.
instead you have Mark Hamill and oh my god, and
Keith David.
uh Keith David, thank you, going at it, which is just amazing.
Their epic
You have
voices.
Joker
The
and
epic
Spawn,
voices.
Joker and Spawn going
Yeah,
at each
yeah, there
other
you go.
here.
Yes.
And so anyway, I absolutely loved it going through it this entire time while they were cutting through other bits of it, and it was just so epic seeing that whole fight come about. And and at the end there we have Skeletor victorious, which I was expecting him to completely lose that fight. Uh,
Yeah, he's sort of victorious, but then in classic Skeletor form, he's a little cocky
oh yeah,
and then loses his arm,
yeah,
which is this whole time has had his staff essentially attached to it and had nanites around it, and it's basically become his
yes,
arm. And then when
yes.
it gets cut off, because that's the last staff that Tila needs, which
Hmm.
when it gets cut off by evil-lyn of all people, she portals in actually and gets it.
You're right. And then goes out. She's
And
like, I'm out of here
dips
now.
out.
I got what I need. Bye.
Yeah. And then takes the staff over, and this is where it gets like emotional, is where the emotional part of it, because Tila starts to try and use all three powers at once and can't handle it, and so He-Man's going in, and the whole five episodes, everyone's been like hinting and innuendoing, when are Tila and He-Man gonna hook up, blah blah
Right.
blah. So He-Man goes in and yeah, and saves the day essentially by holding hands. Cringer, my favorite line of the whole show is Cringer goes, "So you could have just hugged me to turn me into Battle Cat," because we forgot to mention that when the technology took over Grayskull, they kind of blocked the power. Obviously, it makes sense. They, He-Man was He-Man, and he turned instantly back into Adam.
Yes.
And so once he got uh the sword back from, oh yeah, because you know Orko and
That was another great thing because he had
and
someone that's like
Gwildor.
pure tech and pure magic
Yeah,
having to force the
yeah,
work together
and
to
then
get this
battling,
sword
yeah,
done in time.
arguing. Orko, I feel like didn't have that big a role besides
Yeah.
in this, as well. They kind of put him off to the side to be just there, and he provided some comic relief for sure, but definitely
Definitely
was a
was
little
as big of a role
no,
in
not at
his
all.
last time.
So that was definitely something I was a little sad about, but um, heaven gets rebuilt, and his dad,
You have the
before
giant.
going up to
Oh yeah.
heaven, comes and helps him fight Skeletech.
Yeah, we got this massive another huge giant battle.
Yeah,
Going on this entire time, having all sorts of these different factions come together to
yeah, because
kind of like the one at
and
the
then
end of
all the heroes
Revelation.
came
But
because they had to fight the Tech Titans, which we haven't
yeah,
even brought up. They showed one Tech Titan in an earlier episode to foreshadow that all these Tech Titans were going to show up in the final episode,
yes,
and all these champions which we met in Revelations all came
yes,
down and kicked ass. The day was won. They all went back up, and Skeletor actually got turned back in to Keldor at the end and gets put in jail under Grayskull. And
yeah.
that's basically how it ends. Oh, and yeah, then they abolish the monarchy and go to democracy, which I thought was really weird a little bit. I guess it's called revolution for a reason. And so then you get the joke of, well, since they abolished the monarchy, I'll need a place to stay. And Tila said, oh, you can come stay at my place. There's an annoying, power hungry uh, guy in the base dungeon who wants to take over the world or something. Oh, yeah, I'm sure I can handle that. Boom. And that's how it ends.
And we do got the tease too that Hordak
Oh,
is
yes.
just barely alive at the end,
Oh, yeah.
and
It's like they were teasing us when that person took their helmet off. They didn't want us to show who it was.
yeah,
Um,
all I know is that someone sure it's a she named Hordak Prime. I'm not familiar
yes.
with any of that, but
Neither. So it's
yeah,
probably something from that 2000s
possibly. I have no
show,
idea.
or maybe the comics, something. Um,
Very good
but
question.
yeah, that's basically all the spoiler stuff. There's probably a lot more. We could go on
There's
for
definitely a lot
hours
more.
about this, but
That's
we
for sure.
won't. Um,
Lots of so many exciting moments though, right? And that's what
a lot
really
more
stood out to
action,
me is
yes.
you have a lot of action that makes it such an enjoyable watch, and I think this is the kind of story that people were wanting from Revelation at first.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like you said, I think people will be much more pleased with this one overall, and that's definitely what it seems like, right?
Yeah.
And so, and it was such a great watch, such a fun, enjoyable watch, and everyone had their roles and felt like their characters, and you still had all these great ways to just honor the past, and it was a fantastic time.
Yeah. Characters had all arcs ended. Evil-lyn became good-lyn and got to go, got to be a hero, and that's how her arc ended. He-Man got to stay being a champion, which he has wrestling between king and champion.
Yeah.
And now there's gonna be elections, and it's sounding like Andra is gonna win the election. The way they
Yep.
made it sound at the end there. So I'm very excited for a possible part three of all this. You know,
I think a better way to say chapter
chapter
3,
three.
but
Sorry, because it was Revelations had part
uh,
one and two. That was chapter one. Revolutions chapter two. I'm definitely excited for chapter three. Definitely let us know what you thought of Revolutions down in the comments below. Did you think it was better than Revelations? Did you like Revelations better? Did you think they should have done more like I thought? Did you think it was just right like Spencer thought? Uh, and yeah, check out more of our live content over on Twitch. All links down below. Go to our link tree above. You can check all our links there. And make sure that you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, ring the bell after you hit the subscribe button. Do it in whatever order you want to, but make sure that you also share this video and check out more Red Shirts remastered content. And make sure you come back to YouTube on Wednesday nights every other week for usually Rambling Red Shirts, our podcast.
Yep.
Folks, thank you and stay cool.